Welcome back to Generations in Conversation. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest questions of our time. How do we remain fully human in the age of artificial intelligence? Or, as I like to call it, intelligence augmentation.
Views, stories, and ideas shared on Generations in Conversation are based on our personal experiences, research, and honest curiosity. We are not licensed therapists, medical professionals, or trained theologians. The conversations on this podcast are not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you need mental health, medical, or spiritual guidance, please seek support from qualified professionals. We aim to share, learn, and grow together, but always encourage you to take care of yourself and consult trusted experts when needed.
This isn't just about machines taking jobs. It's about identity, creativity, relationships, and even faith. And as father and son from two different generations, we're going to wrestle with it together.
Indeed. I recently read a Forbes article, and it did ask, what does it mean to be human in the age of AI? The author had some really strong arguments around empathy, creativity, and purpose, that these are the qualities that remain uniquely human, even as the machines get smarter and smarter.
Exactly. Machines can process data, predict outcomes, and even generate music or art. And I will not forget what you said when we were looking for music or music bets for podcast. And you said when you went to look for uh, sort of royalty free music, you were shocked about the amount of music that was produced or generated, actually, not produced but generated by AI. But the real question is, do they understand why beauty matters? Do they know what it means to sit in silence, holding grief? Do they sense awe when they see a sunrise? While, of course, AI can create content that mimics human creativity, its creativity is not the same as human creativity. It doesn't have emotions, intentions, or subjective experiences. I remember, Terry, when we have sat together and played music together, right? And you would play a riff, and I'd say, oh, it's like having a conversation, right? And I'd say, wow, that's very interesting what you just said there with that riff. And then I would play something. And then you'd play something. And would go back and forth, having this wonderful, beautiful conversation that would lead us not necessarily to a destination, but to this deeply felt experience. I don't forget those, right? Human creativity involves imagination, context, and of course, emotional depth. AI generated content is based on patterns and correlations, not, I believe, true inspiration. Creativity itself is the ability to produce something novel, original, and valuable. valuable, sorry, whether in art, in science, or even social life, right?
Mm.
In humans, it's driven by experiences, right? Very subjective experiences, insights, and of course, relationship. Can you relate to an AI? Really have a real relationship? Yeah, it can feel like a relationship, but this thing does not have emotions. In AI, it's a product of algorithms and data sets, what you have trained it on, and then it iterates. It says, okay, if this is this, given all the thousands of years of learning that this thing has now of human history and human experience and human thought, right? If this is this, then most likely, right, this can be or can lead to something else. It's in many ways generative, right?
Mm.
Generating content from patterns, predicting or sort of forecasting outcomes from data, right? Human creativity is originally shaped by lived experience. I like, sometimes we say, well, but I'm flesh and blood,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
A warm
A
body,
warm body.
right?
Mm. No, I think that is extremely powerful. You've touched on, I think, many things that I wrestle with in a daily basis, from having that emotional depth, that those scars, the pain and the trouble that then brings you into creativity. The first time I drew a painting in preschool, I didn't understand what was going on. And then I was told and taught and shown, okay, if you want to draw a car, this is how you draw a car. And something as simple as that struggle to get from not understanding to bigger pieces of life, and where we see some of the most beautiful art and music coming from very painful life experiences. That cannot be reproduced. There's no data codex for that kind of information. And it is difficult to really be aware at all times that what you said is true. We are from true creativity. We're coming out of true creativity, and this is generating it from data. Even those relationships that you are speaking about, and how it can go back and forth with you. And recently, Facebook just had to change some of its terms because of how its AI was impacting people that way. Where cognitively, our brains don't know how to distinguish what's going on. But I think for us, we are the true source of this, and AI is just doing a flip, a remix, a bootleg of what we have done. And I think we'll get into this a little bit later, but it is a snapshot too, because it's only up until this point.
Yes.
It has to retrain and put in new data for new changes. So the information and the patterns that we're seeing are patterns past. They don't include the patterns that we are forming today and weaving today.
I like how you say it's a remix. It's a bootleg, actually. That's very interesting. Listen, you're a vinyl record collector,
Indeed.
right? And a couple of days ago, no, yesterday actually, we were talking a little bit about some of the records you have. And the last time I came and had dinner with you, and your new family and friends, we were talking about. I mean, you were playing Jimmy Cliff actually, and I'm like, wow. I remember in 1982 when the 1st August 1982, when there was an attempted coup in Kenya. I was as a very young lad, and still very tuned into like reggae music and things like this. And there was a song playing on the air when the military took over. What at that time it was VOK, the Voice of Kenya, and they were playing this song by Jimmy Cliff. What are you doing in the House of Exile? I think they were talking about President Moi at the time, who was momentarily deposed. It's a day of feasting, a day of rejoicing. And when you're playing that music, it brought back those memories. They came in like a flood, and it took me back to that time. And then yesterday we were talking a little bit about some of the old records you have by D.K. Kamaru, right? Kamaru anyway. And this guy, was interesting in the sense that, I mean, he wrote music from a place of pain, but also from a place of joy. And his music actually got him into a lot of trouble with the then president of Kenya, the first Jomo Kenyatta. Amazing. I mean, again, what you say is this: the AI can write that kind of music, but it's based on our subjective experiences. It's not original, and it cannot replicate songs like there's those days again. Music has been a soundtrack to a lot of political movements. There was a song that was saying the water was bitter during like the journey of the children of Israel from Egypt to Canaan. Even today, the waters are bitter, and people got in trouble. Kamaru got in trouble for asking and writing about what happened to J.M. Kariuki. So again, I'm excited about these things, and you, as a vinyl record connoisseur, I'd like for you we digress, but I can't wait for your listening room where we'll come and listen to some of these records. But tell me about it. Why records? And why not
DSPs?
Apple Music?
Yeah. No, and I think I was born at that time where we were transitioning through from CDs when I was born to digital music when I was preteen, toddler, to now an adult. We have all these streaming services, and and we'll touch on this later actually, and I'm excited for that.
Right.
There is something lost in giving your attention to the art that you are consuming. At least for me, where I can get a playlist from Spotify and it can create a channel and play me all this kind of music to the point where I don't even remember what I've heard and who's playing this. And I remember times where I would go and download music and make a playlist or burn music onto CDs. I remember we used to do that all the time.
Yes.
And with records, it is an active listening experience. You start the record, that path that was painstakingly put together from the first song to maybe about halfway through the record, and then it stops. And you have to get up and flip the record over and press play again. And you get this beautiful cover, which, I mean, the album art then was just insane. And you get to see who was playing the drums, who was playing the keys, where did they record it. Some even have the lyrics. McKenna, your wonderful daughter and my sister, keeps feeding this beast of mine, and she got me actually a modern album, Hiatus Coyote, one of my favorite bands of all time. And the vinyl has every single song and the entirety of the lyrics. This also used to come in the CD inserts or cassette inserts. So your ability now to relate to this music, to really experience and try and translate that experience from the artist into your own. Because that's the thing. At the end of the day, it has to you have to relate it to your own experience. For me, it's just very, very fruitful. It fills me with joy. It heals my sadness or helps me contextualize it. And that active participation in that something that's been created is it's just beautiful. And
Oh, wow.
it's hard to explain.
Yeah. Sorry, I just sorry I opened that can of worms, but I think these are very pleasant worms, right? They play on words. They warm my heart. Again, we'll talk more about this. But let's talk scale. According to another recent article by Fortune magazine, OpenAI's Sam Altman has revealed plans for massive new data centers to support ChatGPT 5 and beyond. Billions of dollars in investment that will reshape global energy and supply chains. Talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, it is not just about technology anymore. It is geopolitical now. It is actually becoming a key building block to humanity's survival, and we'll write that story. It's about who builds, who controls, and who benefits. For Kenya, for Africa, the question now becomes, do we remain consumers or do we find a way to become creators? If you look at the investments in AI, I was reading an article, and we actually spoke about this on the previous podcast as well. It's up 95% overall, and that's consumers. In terms of the people building, just look at NVIDIA stock today.
Wow. Yeah.
NVIDIA has grown to be one of the most valuable companies, and at times the most valuable company in the world. Why? Because they produce the chips that are used in this huge ecosystem that's now growing at a scale that we've never seen before. You have all the top major players in technology and even outside of technology focusing and placing massive bets on this.
Wow. Yeah. Well, yes, the question you ask, do we just remain consumers? And really, what value do we derive? And then not only derive, but also create from that derivation on this continent. We have so many problems that we can't solve. There are still a lot of people who don't have access to financial services, banking, right? Of course, Kenya, we have our legacy.
M-Pesa, the darling of all the case studies.
Yes, but by the way, this thing is still revolutionary. And I don't think it really has ever been recognized by the West a certain way because it did not originate from the West. It has changed how Kenyans deal with money, right? We were in the dark ages. Anyway, I will not go there. But really, as Africans, where we'll have the youngest population in the world in the next 30 years or even less, right? What problems are we going to solve using this? Not just become consumers, right? And in fact, down the line, in one of the episodes that we're thinking about, we will look at Africa's, let's say, tech sector, or our Silicon Valley thinking versus the problems, let's say, Silicon Valley, in the VCs, the venture capitalists are, paying into, or supporting. For me, it's interesting that somebody from the West, and this is not to rag on the West, will come up with an app to help you keep hydrated, right? And that gets $3 million, $5 million from a venture capitalist. What a, and we, you go to Lagos right now. There's somebody I was told the other day that has developed an offline payment system. And I'm like, this is the future, not hydration. I mean, after a while, when you get your habits of hydration all squared, I wouldn't subscribe to that. You learn how your body works and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden that product ends there.
And I mean, that's a problem for people who have access to water to begin with.
Absolutely. Right? So what is it? So AI shouldn't become another extractive sort of economy, or economy that's driven by extraction. Extracting from this continent that has experienced extraction from the get-go, as we relate it to the other parts of the world. The question of being human is also about justice, right? Whether this technology liberates or deepens inequality is important.
Indeed. And I think on that extractive and where our participation comes in, the World Economic Forum has been calling for a human-first approach to AI, centering dignity, creativity, and empathy, not just productivity. And we'll touch on the productivity bit. And I think where we've seen Kenya specifically falter or be damaged by this extractive side is even the dearly loved ChatGPT, when it was being trained here in Kenya for the human interaction, because again, it trains on this data. Self-training is still coming up. It's something that's not fully operational, and so you have to have people sit down and tell it, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, for thousands and thousands and thousands of entries. And a company that was hired by ChatGPT hired Kenyans, and they went through unbelievably traumatic experiences, seeing all sorts of content, getting responses from the AI that were truly quite dark, because if the humanity's picture is not all rosy, there are quite a few thorns, and they have to tune that out. They have to sanitize that. And we were the ones left to sanitize, and the effects that it's had on the people who worked on that project are still being felt today. Yes, but I do wonder, Dad, from your perspective, what should we be seeing?
Yeah, and very good. Technology should amplify our humanity, not erase it. Are we building tools that make us better neighbors, kinder leaders, healthier communities, or just faster consumers? There is this value, a human value that we really are not talking about very explicitly, and it's called convenience. You talked about the record player. You have to stand up and go and change the record because it ends, right? Now, with the streaming services, you can play music for days without having to do much, right? And it's crazy that this value that we're really not talking about, and I think it's very harmful if that becomes a center of who we are as humans. if that is what drives who we are, how we live, everything is convenience, right? What happens, right? Anything that is inconvenient, even a bit, anything that presents a bit of discomfort is shunned. Relationships are not comfortable sometimes.
More often than
It
not
is
at times.
work.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had to work on our relationship. It's not been easy, right? We've had to wrestle with some things very, but look at where we are. Because, again, we did not choose the convenient part. Also, convenience and consumerism go hand in hand. The idea that, well, if I get, I become. If I consume, right, then I become. My friend, the truth is this, that it is not what comes from outside, from our external living experience that necessarily changes who we are. That can. But in terms of life, in terms of, I mean, we should be very careful that we don't lose our humanity as we're driven by this convenience. Yes, AI will improve productivity, but so what if you're more productive? To what end? We will talk about that productivity trap down the line. And let's think on this. Let's think about jobs, dignity, and expertise a little bit. Yeah, again, we read a lot, right? We like we like to base some of what we do from reading, because I don't want to believe my own hype. Sometimes there's that trap, right? Anyway, there's a recent article by The Atlantic where a story where a story is told of radiologists who became so reliant on AI imaging tools that they missed subtle errors, trusting the machine too much.
And that's a very big irony there. My generation, we're human prompters. We value asking the right questions of the AI, but very quickly we can get lazy or careless, and start handing over our thinking. And this has been extremely detrimental. Already recently, I believe it was Google published a paper on atrophy, mental atrophy, where they looked at and studied people who were doing things manually versus using their AI, and not as a collaborative, but as an offloading. And they picked up that very quickly, the parts of their brain that were used to problem solve, to be creative, to think critically, started to diminish in their effectiveness and in their ability to output overall.
And that's where creativity matters again. Cognitive atrophy, my goodness. Wow. Machines can mimic patterns, of course, but the leap of imagination, the spark, that remains a human quality. If we reduce ourselves to prompters, we flatten our originality.
Yeah, that is exactly true. And here in Africa and Kenya, we're not exempt at all. AI tools are creeping into our classrooms, our marketing, our finance, And the risk isn't just job loss, it's dignity lost. We no longer feel uniquely valuable.
That really goes, I think, to the, if I can use that, the crux of humanity: value. What value do I bring?
Mm. And we've seen this, I think, specifically even in the education sector. Kenyans are among the top in academic writing. I've put air quotes for writing your papers in school when you don't have the time or the energy or the care. And with these increase in tools, that means that anybody can have their academic writing done for the small fee of $20 a month, some even free. And that is, again, a negative aspect of it. And that task is something that's maybe not very positive. However, you also get teachers writing their textbooks now and a lot of their content with AI. And we're starting to have this cognitive decline, and we're replacing that with this generative information, and information that's only a snapshot up until this time, up until this point in time. We're taking away our ability to create and weave beautiful new patterns of thinking, of acting, of interacting with each other. Yeah.
But can a machine touch the soul? We have a favorite verse from the scriptures, Romans 12:2, right? And this is actually Paul calling us to, in many ways, to engage our cognitive side, even for us to truly experience spiritual renewal or spiritual transformation. There is no really this experience of spiritual renewal without renewing the mind.
Mm.
Because it is through the mind that everything, maybe I'd argue, exists, right? That's intentional engagement, according to Paul, not outsourcing our meaning, right? AI, however, can, well, augment our search for meaning, right? Take for example, take the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. I think I don't know how to say it exactly. In 79 AD, which buried the town or the city of Herculaneum. Its papyrus scrolls were unreadable for centuries that were unearthed from that excavation until when? 2023, when the Vesuvius Challenge used AI and CT scanning to virtually unroll them. A young researcher identified the Greek word, it's porphyrus, meaning purple, porphyrus. Wow, sorry if I mispronounce these things, right? Since then, thousands of characters have been revealed, unlocking writings by Philodemus. It's like Nicodemus, but Philo is, sort of, when you hear philosophy, right? The study of the mind, the study of so Philodemus, right? Machines recovered the word, but only humans can wrestle with its wisdom. That's the difference, right? So again, AI can help us search, but AI cannot lead us to truly what meaning we derive from this life.
Indeed. And I think touching more on some of the texts that speak to this and speak on this, we have another one of our favorite verses, Isaiah 1:18, and that says, "Come now, let us settle the matter." In some translations, "Come now, let us reason with one another." When we come into using artificial intelligence or intelligence augmented, we are not reasoning. There's nothing that is behind that point that's tying to experience, that's tying to emotion, that's tying to the actual physical sensations that you've gotten over life and over this period of time. And I think fighting between what having faith is, and can you have faith in this time and in this period. So I think a question I have for you, Dad, is how did you first experience faith, and what does that look like to you now?
I think that's a really good place to begin to tie this together, because we remember when we started, we're talking about really what is it to be human? What about our faith in this age of machines that are thinking almost like humans? No, I'm saying almost. And my parents were Methodists, right? And we can go back to John Wesley and things like. But I was born in this Methodist church, Methodist faith tradition, right? Still where liturgy and those tradition, those things were very, very important. In fact, there's what we call the order of service. Okay. And of course, I was baptized as a child in the Methodist church, and given a name, right? And we can talk. I don't like that laughter, right? Yeah. I think you're onto something there. And then and yeah, we grew up going to church, right? Sunday school, right? We were taught interesting Bible stories. I loved these stories. The Bible stories were amazing to me, right? And we were transported. We didn't have videos now. We didn't have all these things. It's somebody there telling us all these stories. And, and as I started growing up, I think, becoming more and more aware and more mature, I was thinking, well, it seems to me that the Bible is a story about humans, not really necessarily about God. Because if God is who God is, He's everywhere. He doesn't need. But we needed a text, and there are other texts as well that brought this thing to a human level. Where we could understand, and not only understand, but relate to a God, this creator. And talking about creativity, actually, human creativity. There's something that I strongly believe in, and I digress a little bit. You prompted me, so thank you. That we are, if you believe in the creation tradition, the story in Genesis, we are created in the image of the Creator. Therefore, we are creative. And the day we stop being creative is the day we stop being human. In fact, a lot of our misery, I can tell you, even my own, is when I was not being creative and working on things, creating things, right? When I was just merely, and anytime I switch merely into a consumer, in fact, there is a spiritual issue that arises in my life. that I get distracted. I lose focus. I lose the very zest of life. Let me come back to this faith. So then later on, of course, I went to high school, I began to question. I began to question everything that had been taught about this Christian faith. In fact, I had serious moments of doubt. In high school, really, I'll confess, I read Karl Marx writings. There's a teacher there who shared a lot of books with me. I read, in fact, Gaddafi's Green Book. I read Mao's Red Book. I read I was a nerd. And I started questioning all these things. But there's a physics teacher, right? Mr. Mbogo, I remember him. And he was an interesting character. He'd gone and studied, I think, done his degree somewhere in the UK and come back. He came back to teach, and he introduced us, as young high school students, to theoretical physics. I didn't even understand what this exactly was, but one of the point that he made that really left me baffled is that we can only perceive 5%, or we even understand 5% of the universe. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Then he went into dark matter. And can you imagine that we were so impressionable at that age? And I'm like, oh, there is a God. Oh, there must be a God. In fact, how I arrived at my faith was because of this insight from theoretical physics to understand. I felt small. I was humbled. In many ways. I'm like, and until this day, I'm a stargazer. You're a stargazer. Well, it's cloudy here in Nairobi today. We can't even see what's happening. And I am always in this space, not always, but most of the time, of awe about the universe, and there is really a creative force behind all what we see. And this is not lost to even modern psychological thinking, that look, people who have faith and have this sense of awe, it's been shown, right? There's evidence, overwhelming evidence, that they do better in life. They live longer. They are happier. I'm not talking about the extreme faith without reason. I'm not talking about the Shakahola kind of craziness where it becomes cultish and faith without reason. I am a proponent of faith with reason. Even God, as you said, calls us
to reason,
to come and reason with him, right? So my story of faith is interwoven between Bible stories that I was told when I was a young kid. And then, of course, I've read the Bible. I've read the Quran. I read, in fact, the Khmer Bible, I have a Khmer Bible, I was telling you. I read it in Khmer, crazy, right? And that's why I'm still fluent in my own mother tongue, right? But, that journey was interesting. But I'd like to hear about you as well. Yeah, and again, for us, this is a full package, and we're not here to preach.
No.
But we're here to share.
Indeed. Again, you guys raised me initially. I don't think we're denominational.
No, it was
yeah, very intentional. However, we would go to Sunday school again. We would read all these stories. By then, I had picture books of the stories in the Old Testament of Noah, of Jonah. I had Veggie Tales as well. Those little green cassettes, VCR days. How far we've come. And again, I was just in awe with how amazing, how unbelievable these stories were. Yet how every time, I think the thing I picked up was these were unbelievable stories with very believable characters. The characters in these stories, there was a piece of me that I could see in them. Whether that was their fear, or their unwillingness to do hard things initially, or their confusion in
Jonah.
Yeah. Yes. Or the confusion. That's still my favorite VeggieTales movie of all time. Jonah, the Jonah one, special, brilliant. And
Wait, sorry, have you had Jonah moments where you've been swallowed because you didn't want to do many things, and you were swallowed by a fish, and you're spit out in places that you didn't want to be, but that's where you really needed to be?
that's where, and again, the science tying that in, doing those hard things, that's what makes us grow. The saying, age-old saying, growth and comfort can't exist in the same environment. And as humans, and what I learned through these stories as well, and the picture that I was painted was that we have this amazing opportunity, this calling to keep growing, to keep learning, to keep expanding. Our potential is, honestly, I don't know where it stops, but the limitation most of the time is me. And working through getting into high school and going into a what I would say overly religious, where it is not about the faith, it is not per se about God and our humanity and how we better relate with one another, like we see in the Christians, real true Christians in Acts, who were practically like hippies. It was structure, it was culture, it was these prescriptive items, and that again made me question, made me wonder, because it removed this ability for me to create. Being a musician, I tried to bring drums there. I tried to bring my electric guitar there. Nothing. Every time, no, we can't do that. That's it's wrong. But this is something that was put in me, and then coming out of that and really starting to see what the creative power of us is, and how not only does the Bible make this like very practical and real for me in the human sense, that these are stories that I can relate with, but getting into the science. And a lot of people will think that science is on one side and faith is on the other side. But the more I learned and the more I researched on each side, going through the Bible, going through new studies on psychoanalysis, on how we are meant to relate, how we wake up, how we breathe, and seeing, oh, these are telling the same story. The source is the same place. And I think that, for me, was what brought me in, and what my faith stands on now. It is in everything. It's in that little leaf, in the beauty of a sunrise. It's in fighting a bug for 3 days and overcoming that so that there's a new feature that's out. And just the amazing privilege it is to have this experience, my experience. And
Absolutely, this is amazing. When you talk about the religious structures that are so choking, they choke the life out of people. And how is it that, right? If we talk about Kenya really having a majority, I mean, you have churches, you have mosques, you have faith institutions in every corner. I mean, if you walk out here, you'll see it. Yet, in terms of how that we relate one to another, how we practice, even ethics, like corruption is rife. This is one of the things that we talk about in this country. Yet every Sunday, every Friday, you see all these artifacts of faith, right? And then we go back to, I mean, what you're saying, really, no, it's not about that. It's about relating. to a creator. It's about relating then one to another. The evidence that I have met the creator is how I relate to my fellow human beings, who, if you believe again in Genesis, is created in the image of God. Right? He, what do the scriptures say? He who does not love does not know God. For God is love. So AI is not going away.
No, it's not going anywhere.
All these things are not going away, but can AI love? No. It is not flesh and blood. It is not warm, right? The question is, will we shrink into passive users or rise as intentional, creative, and faithful humans?
And that's the journey that this podcast is about. What stays, what changes, and how we tell hopeful stories in each season of life.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, share, and tell us what resonates with you, because this conversation needs your voice too.
Hey there, podcasters. If you are wondering how our sound is as fantastic as it is, and how our episodes come to be, and you're looking for the best place to record, come to VoiceBox Studios in Karen, here in Nairobi. It has you covered. Brilliant rates, beautiful space, and really just the best sound team around. It's a perfect place to bring your podcast to life. Whether you're doing audio, visual, you need backdrops, you need props, they got it all. So come out and check out VoiceBox Studios. Their link is in our description, in the show notes. And yeah, come and get your stories told here.